The thing I keep going back to isn't the part where she said it. It's the half second before, where all I had to do was click the little red button and go to bed, and instead I sat there with my hand on the trackpad and let the whole truth walk into my apartment. It was a Thursday in March, a little after 9, and my sister Steph had dragged 5 of us onto a video call to plan our dad's 60th. Steph, her husband, my cousin Cole calling in from his truck in a Schnucks parking lot, me on my couch in St. Louis with the game muted in the corner of the screen, and Maggie Vance, in the box next to mine, an old red Cardinal sweatshirt on and a pen stuck in her hair, fixing the spelling in the shared planning doc while the rest of us argued about whether Dad wanted barbecue or toasted ravioli from the hill. "Nate," she said, not looking up, "you spelled barbecue 3 different ways in one sentence." I was workshopping it. "You wrote barbecue with a Q and an extra E. That's not a word, that's a cry for help." Steph laughed, said that was exactly why Maggie got invited to family things and I just got tolerated, and Cole, who has never once let a sentence sit there peacefully, said, "I mean, Maggie's not really family, though." It went quiet for about half a beat. Maggie smiled the way you smile at a joke you've heard 100 times and learned to wear like a coat. "I'm honorary," she said, "like a plaque. And here is the part I think about. I could have said she's family. 2 words. The truest thing in the room. Instead, I made some noise about checking the guest list and looked down at the document like it needed me, and the moment closed over like water. And that was that. I have spent my whole adult life being the guy people call steady. Steady is a fine thing to be, until you notice it's just a nicer word for the man who never says the hard sentence, when the hard sentence is the only one that matters. Steph wrapped it up around 9:45, said she had enough to start bossing everyone around, and people dropped off the call one by one. Cole vanished mid-word. Steph said, "Love you, idiots," and clicked away. I reached to leave too, but my internet did that hitch it does in old buildings, froze the screen, stuttered, and came back with just one box still lit. Maggie's. She thought she'd muted. She hadn't. She pulled the pen out of her hair and let out a long breath like she'd been holding it since Cole opened his mouth, and a voice came from somewhere off to the side of her kitchen. Her sister Renee staying with her that week. "You okay?" "No," Maggie said. I should have closed the laptop right then. I knew it the way you know you should look away from a car wreck. But Renee said, "The family thing again?" And Maggie gave this small, tired laugh with nothing in it. "I'm always almost family," she said. 11 years and I'm a plaque. My hand stopped over the trackpad. "He keeps me on every form he's got," she said, quieter now, like she was talking to the counter. "I'm his emergency contact at the dentist, the apartment, the job. I'm the one he calls when his car dies or his mom's in the hospital or some girl breaks up with him in a parking lot. I'm the person he reaches for when something's broken." She rubbed her forehead. "I just don't want to be the person he reaches for when something's broken anymore, Ren. I want to be the person he picks when nothing is." I closed the laptop. Too fast, too hard, the click loud in the empty room. And then I sat there in the dark with my hand flat on the lid like it had said something to me, which I guess it had. The refrigerator hummed. A bus went by out on King Skyway. I didn't move for a long time. I do claims for a regional insurer, which means I spend my days walking through the worst week of strangers' lives with a clipboard and a calm voice. Hail came through and took your roof, water got behind your drywall, a kitchen fire ate one wall and smoked the rest. I show up after. I measure the damage, I write down what it'll cost to make it close to whole, and I explain deductibles to people who are still in shock without making promises I can't keep. I'm good at it. I can stand in a ruined living room and be the steadiest thing in it. It took me an embarrassingly long time to notice that a man can get so good at assessing other people's disasters that he never once files a claim on his own life. I met Maggie when I was 24, and at the bottom of a hole I dug pretty thoroughly. A job in Memphis had folded under me, my car had a dying alternator, my checking account read like a warning label, and I was sleeping on a fold-out in Steph's basement that closed on me in the night like it had a grudge. Maggie was Steph's friend from Mizzou. She came over one Saturday to help paint the nursery for my niece, and I was supposed to be gone, but my car wouldn't turn over, so there I was in the driveway with the hood up, glaring at an engine I did not understand, as if intimidation were a repair strategy. She came out holding a roller wrapped in a grocery bag and looked at me over the fender. "You want help, or you want to keep threatening it?" "I know cars," I said, and the engine immediately made a sound like a coin in a dryer, which did not help my case. "Convincing," she said. I was 24 and broke and humiliated, and somehow she made it not feel cruel. She set the roller on the porch rail, called her dad, and 10 minutes later had me whacking the alternator with the handle of a screwdriver while she turned the key, and the thing coughed and caught and ran. She leaned out the window. "You're welcome." I said she'd fixed it with witchcraft. "No," she said, "with my father and a little humility, which I notice you keep in short supply." That was the first time. It was nowhere near the last. A month later, I got food poisoning off gas station sushi, which is a thing a grown man should not have to be witnessed surviving, and she showed up with ginger ale, saltines, and the exact amount of judgment I had earned. The winter after that, I caught a flat on I-44 in freezing rain, called Steph, got told she was bathing the baby, and to call Maggie because she was closer. And Maggie stood out there in the sleet with her hood up and water running off her nose and said, "Do men only fall apart near vehicles, or is this a full-time thing?" I told her I knew how to change a tire. "Then why am I here?" "Emotional support," I said. "Then cry faster, I'm freezing." After that, she was just the person I called. Not only for the dramatic stuff. When I got lost in IKEA and needed talking out of a desk I didn't have room for. When a date went sideways. When my dad had a heart scare and I needed to sound calm for Steph before I could go to pieces somewhere private. Maggie never made me explain why I was calling. She just answered. That's how somebody becomes the center of your life without anybody holding a vote, one small rescue at a time. Until you can't remember the shape of a hard day that didn't have her voice in it somewhere. The first time I wrote her name on a form, I was 25, filling out paperwork for the adjuster job, and I hit that line emergency contact and stalled with the pen up. My mother would beat the ambulance to a panic. Steph had a newborn and a full plate. My dad believed most medical events could be walked off. So I wrote Maggie Vance, and under relationship I wrote friend, and I sat looking at that word for longer than a man should sit looking at a word. It was true. It was also about 3 sizes too small, like a coat I'd bought for somebody and then kept wearing myself. I never told her about that first one. She found out 2 years later when I tripped on a busted sidewalk outside a client's house and split my chin open on the porch step, and the urgent care called her because I'd let my insurance card go stale, but never my emergency contact. She came straight from school, badge still around her neck, and found me on the exam table holding gauze to my face. "Really?" she said. "Not a question. I was assaulted by municipal neglect. You fell down." With drama. She crossed her arms. "I'm your emergency contact?" I tried to shrug and regretted it. "Apparently you didn't ask me. I figured you'd say yes." That, she said, is not the same thing as asking, and she was right, the way she was so often right that it got inconvenient later. She stayed till they cut me loose, drove me home, heated up a can of soup, and told Steph I'd survived gravity. After that I did ask. Or I told myself I did. A form would come up and I'd say, "Still good to put you down?" And she'd roll her eyes and say, "Obviously." And I built a whole quiet life on that word. Obviously she'd answer. Obviously she'd come. Obviously she'd know what I meant when I said less than I should. It never crossed my mind that obviously is just the polite version of taking someone for granted. Years braided up the way years do. I helped her haul boxes into her first classroom in August heat that made the halls smell like floor wax and old lockers, and she texted me a photo of the door, "Room 214, miss." Vance and I wrote "Try not to scare the freshmen," and she wrote back "Fear is pedagogy." She picked the paint when I finally bought my own place. Because, she said, landlord beige is not a personality. When her grandfather died, I drove her down to the funeral in the Boothiel, and we stopped at a Steak and Shake on the way home, and she cried into a napkin, and I pretended not to see until she said, "Flat. You can see me." So I did. When my mom got her diagnosis, Maggie made a spreadsheet of the appointments because I was being calm in the way men are calm right before they crack down the middle. And she sat with us through the first surgery, and she called me every night after Mom's radiation to ask the one question nobody else thought to ask. How are you when nobody needs you to be useful? I never had a good answer. She kept asking anyway. And yes, I dated. Of course I did. That's what you do when you're too scared to say the name of the person already taking up all the room. There was Rachel, who was kind and funny and who told me after 5 months that she felt like she was dating the guest version of me, the one who keeps his coat on. I told myself she just wasn't the right fit. Maybe she wasn't. But I noticed I called Maggie from the car after Rachel left, and Maggie answered on the second ring, like always. And it did not once occur to me to wonder what that meant. I am telling you all this so you understand I wasn't an innocent man getting blindsided on a Thursday night. I was a man who had carefully arranged his whole heart on a shelf and labeled the box storage so he'd never have to carry it. I didn't sleep that night. Around 1:30, I picked up the phone and started a text. I heard you. Deleted it. Are you okay? Deleted that. And then I watched my own thumbs type the thing that showed me the worst of myself before I could stop them. Please don't take my name off. And I sat staring at it. Because my very first instinct, before I'd thought once about what she needed, was to beg her not to take away the thing that made me feel safe. I deleted it and put the phone face down on the counter and didn't touch it again. In the morning, I called Steph. She picked up with, "If this is about the barbecue, I already won," and I said it wasn't about the barbecue, and she said, "Oh no," in the voice she uses when she already knows. I told her what happened. Not all of it. Enough. When I finished, she was quiet so long I checked the screen. "I'm deciding how nice to be about this," she said. "That bad. Nate, Maggie has been in love with you since before my oldest could walk." I sat down on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinets, which is not a thing I usually do. You knew. Everybody with working eyes knew. That's not helpful. "It might have been," she said, "if you'd borrowed a pair." Then, softer. "Because Steph doesn't believe in letting a man drown when there's accountability within reach. I don't think you meant to hurt her. But you made her the safest person in your life and then kept introducing her like she was a coat check girl. You wrote her name on every form you own and never once said the word out loud where it counted. She said she's done being my emergency contact. Maybe she should be," Steph said, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. And Nate. Her school's switching their HR system. She has to redo all her forms by Friday. She was joking about it last week, how she still had you listed after all this time. Friday, I need to talk to her." "Yes, but not because you're scared of losing your parking spot in her life. Figure out which one it is before you go." And then she hung up, because my sister has always known how to end a call like a door. I worked a full day on a hail claim out in St. Charles, photographed dented siding and lifted shingles and nodded at a homeowner who kept saying we just redid this roof, and the whole time her sentence ran behind my eyes on a loop. I want to be the person he picks when nothing is broken. And by lunch I had a list going, not on paper, just in my chest, of every time I had reached for Maggie only because something had cracked. The urgent care. The flat. My mom. The night I got passed over for a promotion and called her from a gas station because I couldn't go home yet. The wedding where Rachel dumped me by the coat closet and I texted Maggie, "Can you just come?" and she left her own work thing early and came. She always came. And I could not find anywhere in 11 years a single time I had called her just to say the evening was nice and I wanted her in it. Not once had I knocked on her door when nothing had failed or flooded or ended or scared me. I did not enjoy that inventory. I drove to her place that evening. She lives on the second floor of a brick 4 flat in South City, over a retired guy who grows tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets and runs the parking out front like a small nation. I'd been there so many times I knew which stair groaned and which porch bulb flickered when it was cold. I parked and sat in the car. 7 minutes. Then more. At 7:15, she came out with a trash bag and stopped when she saw me. For a second, we just looked at each other through the windshield. Then she walked the bag to the bin, dropped it in, and came toward the car, and I got out before she reached it. "Hey," I said. She read my face in about a second. which was the whole problem with us, really. She always could. "Are you okay?" she asked. That was the first thing out of her. "Are you okay?" After everything, with the hurt sitting right there behind her eyes, she asked me first. It nearly took my legs out. "I heard you," I said. The porch bulb buzzed. She went very still. "What?" "Last night. My laptop froze after the call, and your box stayed up. You thought you were muted." The color went out of her face. I took a step without meaning to and then stopped myself, because comfort wasn't mine to hand out right then. "I closed it," I said. I heard the part about the emergency contact, and I closed it. "How much is enough?" "Enough." She looked off down the street, arms wrapping around herself even though the night was soft. "This is humiliating," she said. "It shouldn't be." "It is, though." "I know." "No, you don't, Nate. You get to be surprised. I get to be the one standing here with my insides on the porch." She was right, and I said so, and she blinked like she'd braced for an argument and gotten something else. "I came because I didn't want to pretend I hadn't heard," I said, "and because I didn't want to make you the one who has to explain it so I feel better. So I'm not going to ask you to." "Then why are you here?" There it was, the blank line on the form. The place where you have to write the word. "Because Steph asked me whether you're my person or just my paperwork," I said. "And I drove over here because I already knew the answer, and I've been a coward about it for 11 years. Despite all of it, she made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Steph is terrifying." "She is. And I don't want you to be my paperwork." Her eyes filled, but she didn't soften. "Not yet. You don't get to fix 11 years with one good sentence." "I know. Do you?" "I'm trying to." She looked at me a long moment, then said, "Come up." Her apartment was the same as it always was, and somehow not the overstuffed shelves, the blue couch, the stack of essays bleeding red on the coffee table. The ugly little ceramic owl on the sill she swore was lucky. But on the kitchen table next to her laptop was the form. Emergency contact update, and my name already crossed through in blue ballpoint, with a new name printed underneath. Renee Vance. Sister. I felt that in my body. A drop. Like a stare that isn't there. And I knew I'd earned it, which somehow made it land harder. She watched me see it. "I was going to turn it in tomorrow," she said. "That makes sense." "It does?" "Yeah," she sat. I stayed standing till she pointed at the chair across from her, and I took at the same table where I'd eaten 100 takeout dinners, where she'd let me grade her multiple-choice quizzes because I couldn't be trusted with the essays, where I'd cried exactly once, after my mom's surgery, and then pretended none of it had been building a life the whole time. "I need you to hear one thing," she said. "I wasn't trying to make you love me by being useful. I didn't keep score. I answered because you were my friend and because I loved you, sure. But not only because I loved you. You mattered to me. Your mom mattered. Steph's kids matter. I'd do all of it again." "I know. I don't think you do." She turned the pen over in her fingers. "I didn't wake up one day mad about it. I got tired slow, one form at a time. One girlfriend asking me why I knew your medical history better than she did. One cousin calling me a plaque. One bad night where you grabbed for me like I was air and then introduced me as your buddy Maggie the second the room had other people in it. It wears down quiet, like a step everybody uses and nobody fixes." I should have said something when Cole said that. Yes, I wanted to. That doesn't count, Nate. Wanting to never once counted. I looked at my hands. "No, I'm 35, she said. "I want a life with room in it for somebody to choose me on purpose, not by habit, not because I'm the closest warm body when the wheels come off. And I cannot keep being proud that I'm your first call if the only time you call is when you're falling apart." She wasn't cruel about it. It was clean, the way a good cut is clean. The kind that actually shows you where the damage is so you can do something about it. And this is the part I have to tell you straight, because it's the part I'd hidden longest. I didn't sit there and discover my feelings on her kitchen chair. I'd known them for years. I just kept them in that box marked storage. "I've been in love with you for a long time," I said. The words came out rough, like they'd been kept somewhere cold. I think since the alternator, honestly, which is a stupid thing to fall in love over. I just kept filing it under names that asked less of me. best friend, family, the person I call, emergency contact. I looked at the crossed-out form. All of them true. All of them too small. I told myself I was protecting the friendship. I think I was just protecting myself from having to be brave. Her mouth came open a little. I didn't mean for you to hear me say that last night. I know. You'd have said it better. Much better. With fewer dishes in the sink. I don't think better would have hit me. I think I needed the version that wasn't meant for me. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, fast, like she was mad at it. So what do you want then? I looked at the form. And every part of me that had typed "please don't take my name off" at 1:30 in the morning wanted to ask her to leave it. To keep me. That's exactly why I couldn't. I want you to turn it in, I said. She stared at me. Really? Yeah, why would you? Because I'm not going to let the first real thing I ever choose about you be asking you to keep carrying me. You should put Renee. You should have somebody who's actually yours on that line. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folded paper and set it on the table between us. My own emergency contact update from work that I'd been issued that week. Her name's still on it. Maggie Vance. Friend. I brought this thinking I'd do something big. Cross out friend. Write something dramatic. And I sat in the car and realized changing one word on a form doesn't undo 11 years of writing the wrong one. So I'm not asking to be your emergency anything tonight. I'm not even asking you to stay mine. She waited. I'm asking if I can call you Saturday. Her eyebrows pulled together. For what? Nothing, the word sat in the kitchen. No flat tire under it. No hospital. No funeral. No breakup. No broken thing at all. I want to call you when nothing's wrong, I said. And if you pick up, I want to start learning how to be a person who doesn't only reach for you when his life's on fire. That's all. That's the whole thing I've got. She looked at me like she didn't trust her own voice. Then, Saturday. Yeah, what time? 2? I grade on Saturdays. I'll call Sunday. No, she pressed her wrist to her cheek again. 2's fine. Okay, this isn't a date. I know. And it's not a fix. It's a phone call, I said. Nothing wrong. Nobody bleeding. Nobody bleeding, she repeated and nodded slow and said, okay, good. I left without hugging her. That was one of the harder things I've done. Standing in her doorway with my whole body wanting to close the foot of space between us. And not doing it. Because some things you have to prove by what you don't grab at before anybody can trust them. Friday, she turned the form in. She sent me a screenshot at 12 minutes after 4. Emergency contact. Renee Vance. Sister. And under it, this needed to happen. I looked at it a long time and then wrote back, I know. I'm proud of you. And meant it more than I've meant most things. 3 dots came up, went away, came up again. Then, thank you. Saturday at 2, my hand was actually shaking over the call button, which was ridiculous since I'd called this woman 1,000 times. But every one of those calls had an emergency to hide inside, and this one had nowhere to hide. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Hello? Hi, is something on fire? No. Are you bleeding? No. Flat tire? Dead relative? Gas station sushi? That was one time. It lives in legend. I could hear the smile starting. And I said, nothing's wrong, Mags. I just wanted to talk to you. And the line went quiet, not empty. The other kind, the full kind, and she said, okay, soft. And we talked for 20-some minutes about absolutely nothing. The unbelievable essay one of her sophomores turned in about symbolism in Gatsby. My dad's strong feelings on sauce. A dog I'd seen riding shotgun in a plumbing van like it owned the company. Nothing got solved. That was the entire point. We did it again the next week. Then again. Not every day we both had lives, jobs, families, our own stubborn fears that didn't evaporate just because we'd finally named them. I slipped sometimes. One night after a bad day on a fire claim, I caught myself already dialing her. Heavy and rattled and running on the old reflex. And I made myself stop in the car outside the burned house and ask what I was actually doing. And when I called, I said it out loud first, I'm upset, and I want to talk to you. But I don't want to just drop my whole bad day on you like I always did without even asking. She was quiet a second. Then, thank you for saying the whole thing. That became ours after that. The whole thing. Not perfect. Whole. Dad's party landed in June. In Steph's backyard under a string of lights and a sky that kept threatening rain and never delivered. Barbecue won. Dad wore a shirt with parrots on it and told the laundry basket story about me at age 4 for the 800th time. Maggie came, of course she came, but this time I didn't let her drift off to the almost family spot by the drink cooler where she always ended up. When Cole rolled in and said, "There she is, the honorary plaque," I looked at him and said, "No." The talk near us dropped a notch. Cole blinked. "What?" "She's not honorary anything." Maggie was standing next to me with a paper plate, gone completely still. My heart was going like I was about to step off a roof. "This is Maggie," I said, "and she's here with me." It wasn't a proposal. It wasn't even a word big enough for anybody to gossip over. But it was out loud, in front of my whole family, on purpose. Cole said, "Cool," and went to find the ribs, because Cole contains exactly one gear. Across the yard, Steph watched with the smug look of a woman whose brother is finally, slightly, less of a disappointment. Later, Maggie and I stood by the fence while the kids chased lightning bugs with a jar, and she said, "You didn't have to do that." And I said, "I did." And she said, "Yeah, you did," and reached over and held my hand for a second, the first time she'd reached for me since any of it. And the whole loud backyard seemed to go quiet even though it didn't. In July, she got the summer flu, the kind that flattens teachers in the one season they're supposed to be invincible. Renee was out of town. She texted me, "Do not come over, I am disgusting and contagious." The old me would have shown up with soup and a thermometer and turned the whole thing into a rescue with me as the hero of it. Instead, I wrote back, "Do you actually want to be alone? Or are you just trying not to need anybody?" She didn't answer for 12 minutes. Then, the second one. I left soup and ginger ale and the crackers she likes outside her door and stepped back, and she opened it in sweatpants with her hair a disaster and said, "You can come in." I asked if she was sure. "Nate, I have a fever. If you make this emotionally complicated, I will sneeze directly on you." So I went in, and she fell asleep on the couch halfway through a movie, and I sat in the chair across from her, not touching her, just there. Once she surfaced and saw me. "You stayed," she mumbled. "You asked," I said. "No, I didn't." "No," I said. "You let me." And she was out again before she could argue. The first time I kissed her was a Saturday in September at the farmer's market in Tower Grove, and the fact that it took that long is the whole story. We'd gone for peaches. That was the entire mission. Peaches and maybe bread, if the good stand hadn't sold out, and she was at a table arguing with a man about whether a tomato could be aggressively ripe. And I was holding a tote with the peaches and the bread and a bunch of flowers I'd bought without making a single joke about buying them. That part mattered more than the kiss, honestly. She clocked the flowers. For me? Yeah, what's the occasion? There isn't one. Nothing's broken? Nothing but my dignity, buying these in front of a guy I do business with. She took them and went quiet, this stunned, soft look coming over her face. "You bought me flowers for no reason. That's generally how flowers work." "Nate." Yeah, she looked at the flowers and then at me, standing there between a honey stand and a man selling cutting boards, with families and strollers and people squeezing fruit like it owed them money all around us, and she said, "I don't always know what to do with ordinary." "Me neither," I said. "We can figure it out." She stepped in. "Can I kiss you?" I laughed, because of course she asked first. Of course she did. "Please, before I spend another 11 years thinking about it." So she did. It was careful. Not nervous, exactly careful, like we both understood this wasn't the start of feeling something. It was just the first time we'd let the thing we'd felt for years stand out in the daylight where anybody could see it. When we came apart, she looked down at the flowers and said, "These are kind of beautiful. I picked them myself. They were in a bucket. I selected them. From the bucket. Heroic," she said, and took my hand right there in front of everyone. And we walked out into the morning with peaches and bread and a hand I'd been holding every way except the one that counted. A little over a year after the night her mic stayed on, she put me back on the form. I didn't ask her to. I didn't even know until she turned the laptop around at her kitchen table on a Sunday, the two of us eating pancakes I'd made slightly too dark on one side and which she ate anyway out of love or hunger, hard to say. Emergency contact, Nate Doyle. And under relationship, not friend. Partner. I looked at it, then at her. You sure? Yeah, you don't have to. I don't want to be back on there because of history. You're not. I don't want it to feel like a job again. It doesn't. She leaned back. You want to know when I decided? When? Last month when my car started making that grinding noise in the Schnucks lot and I called Renee first, because she was closer. And you didn't get weird about it. You didn't get hurt that I didn't need you first. You just asked if I was somewhere safe and then told me to call you when I got home because you wanted to hear my voice, not because you needed to fix anything. She shrugged like it was small. That's when I knew it had actually changed shape. You'd finally figured out you could be on the list for a reason that isn't an emergency. I barely remembered that call. It had felt like nothing at the time. Maybe that's where you find out whether love's changed not in the big nights, but in the ones so ordinary you forget them. She reached across the syrup and put her hand over mine. I don't need you to be my emergency, Nate, she said. I want you to be my regular Tuesday. I got up and went around the table and held on to her, and for once I didn't let go before she could feel what it meant. I cried a little. She pretended not to notice for about 3 seconds and then said, I'm noticing. I know. Growth? Don't make it a lesson. I'm an English teacher, she said into my shoulder. Everything's a lesson. And we just stood there in her kitchen laughing into each other while the form sat open on the screen, and this time it didn't read like paperwork. It read like something we'd had to earn. We still get on the family video calls. Steph and Renee and Cole and the whole loud mess of us arguing about whose turn it is to host and how to spell things. And every so often, right before she's about to say something she actually means, Maggie taps the little microphone icon at the bottom of her screen, looks straight into the camera, and asks me, Am I muted? No, I tell her. Every time. No, you're not. Good, she says. And then she says it on purpose.